Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Peace Day event. My name is Amir Golalipur.
And I am Akula Bish.
And we are the moderators for this program. We are going to start the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored audience, welcome to BMW's Body and Mind Wellness celebration of International Peace Day. For more than 30 years, the United Nations General Assembly has dedicated the 21st of September to the pursuit of world peace. On this day, we hope not to see a single day of war. We hope there will be not even a single day of violence. We hope for even a temporary ceasefire. Today and in this program, we use the celebration of peace to speak of war. War, which is disaster and destruction, which is tragedy. Today, we use the celebration of peace to speak of migration and wandering, seeking refuge from war. Today, we use the celebration of peace to speak of the destructive effect of war on the genetic material of generations. Today, we use the celebration of peace to speak of children left alone and without a future. Today, we use the celebration of peace to capture wartime and see pictures of what it can look like. Today, we use the celebration of peace to hear memories of war. Today, we use the celebration of peace to speak of human rights, the right of every human to live under the shade of freedom, justice, and peace. Today, we use the celebration of peace to listen to the Persian poet Sa'di. All human beings are members of the same body. Today, we use this celebration to hear instruments tuned for the melody of peace, to hear a harp played by wind. Today, we begin this program by remembering those who have worked for the betterment of human life, for human rights, and world peace. Needless to say, such good people are innumerable. In the brief time we have today, we honor the first recipients of the United Nations Prize in the field of human rights. Manuel Bianchi of Chile, Chairman of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. René Cassin of France, member of the UN Commission on Human Rights. Mehrangiza Manouchehrian of Iran, attorney and senator. Petr Emilianovich Nedbailo of Ukraine, member of the UN Commission on Human Rights, as well as Eleanor Roosevelt of the United States of America, First Lady and President of the UN Commission on Human Rights, and Albert Luthuli of South Africa, President of the African National Congress, who both received the award posthumously. In searching for accounts from these recipients, we have invited the niece of Dr. Mehrangiza Manouchehrian to speak of her life, accomplishments, and heart. Please welcome Nazanina Manouchehrian.
Look at this picture. Look at her eyes, her simple haircut, her humble outfit. Born on September 24th, 1906 in Mashhad, Iran, she was among the first group of girls who were allowed to enter law school in 1945. A law PhD graduate from Tehran University in 1959. A senator from 1963 to 1972. Founder and leader of the Iranian Women Lawyers Union starting May 1961. Permanent honorary president of the International Federation of Women Lawyers since 1963. A United Nations Human Rights Peace Prize winner in 1968. The Center of the World Peace awarded her the Peace Prize through law in 1971. An esteemed lecturer in Persian, English, and French. Somehow, she also made time to fill her life with art, write extensively about music, and translate books. I'm honored to be her niece and have had the chance of watching her and learning from her while growing up. She has been an influential figure in our family, nationally and internationally. Despite our great age gap, her kindness towards children, her wit, and her artistic soul made her company very pleasant for children as well as adults. Solely an individual with such compassion could fight for the rights of women and children for so many years. She drafted a law to stop discrimination against children born out of wedlock and a law for the protection of children based on the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights inspired her to draft a law for the family based on equal rights. Furthermore, in 1966, she drafted a specialized postgraduate program for juvenile court judges to better prepare the next generation. I want to share with you two mementos I have of her. First is this beautiful piece of art, which was gifted to her in 1964 by the Indian president at the time, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. The second are these two cards. Whenever she said goodbye, she would gift you with a poetry card, as colorful as her sense of humor. I encourage everyone who wants to know more about her to read this book, The Senator, by Nushin Ahmadi Khorasani and Parveen Ardalan. She began her eternal journey on July 4th, 2000. She will be dearly missed forever, and thank you.
Thank you, Parnian and Nazanin, for the great video, and hope we enjoyed it. As mentioned, this was our dedication to Mehrangiz Manuchehrian, one of the 6 recipients of UN First Award on the field of human rights. The ceremony was on December 10, 1968. That was the 20th anniversary of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that which the UN has designated Human Rights Day. So we also would like to hear from you, the audience, and we would like to engage in our program. So we would like to ask you, what is the best book you have read on peace topic? So you can use the chat in the YouTube live or in the Zoom. If you are joining us via Zoom, please write down one of the best book that you have read on the peace topic, and we would, that way you are sharing your experience with everyone, and also we are going through that list hopefully at the end of the program if we have more time.
As we are all gathered here to celebrate peace, I'd like to ask our dear audience another question. What does peace mean to you? You can write your answers in the chat box, and while you're answering, we'd like to move on with the event. Talking about migration. Migration is a perilous journey and involves a great range of threats, often caused by human activities. Migratory birds fly hundreds and thousands of kilometers to find the best ecological conditions and habitats for feeding, breeding, and raising their young. When conditions at breeding sites become unfavorable, it's time to fly to regions where conditions are better. Let's look at a video.
I thought to myself, I wish I was a bird. All my days would revolve around finding water and seeds. Life would be tied to rain and trees and flowers. Everything would be wings and feathers and flight. A bird. But if I were a bird, I would not look for shade behind vines like a starling. I would not borrow a cage from the world like a parrot. I would not settle for squalor like a crow. I would not charm like a swan. I would not have the hubris of an eagle. I would not aim at the ground like a vulture toward blood, toward the smell of death. I'd just sing at every branch like a sparrow, saunter like a partridge, like a peacock inebriated by color, like a swallow in migration. Migration. Leaving. I'm not sure if I'd migrate.
Cormorant chicks abandoned on Robben Island have been rescued, but sadly, many of them did not survive. Well, the rescued chicks are now in the care of SA's Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds, which has given them a second chance. Here's Tanya Neft with the story.
These are just some of the hundreds of Cape cormorant chicks rescued off Cape Town's famous Robben Island. After seabird rangers stationed there noticed that their parents had abandoned them. A major rescue operation ensured the baby birds were brought to Sandkop's Rehabilitation Center to be cared for.
It was incredibly hot. The chicks had heat stress and also they were being predated on. So we had to act quickly. It has happened in the past where Cape cormorants have abandoned their chicks and they don't return.
Why were these chicks left defenseless? Why did the birds leave? Why did the mothers and fathers leave? A departure so untimely, without warning and without reason. Maybe they have taken refuge in the sea from the midsummer heat. Maybe they will come back. Maybe they went to get the breeze, thinking their wings can reach the clouds and rain, thinking they can bring back food. They've gone. Sunset arrived. The next morning, the adult birds did not return. Where are they? And what are they doing? Are they alive? Do they think about these chicks?
The chicks were in a poor condition on arrival, but thanks to the incredible team of Sandkop staff and volunteers, they're getting stronger every day and will be released back into their natural habitat after a 3-month rehabilitation process.
It's the greatest experience, and going home knowing that you actually have done something for conservation, it is the best feeling ever.
14-hour shifts means nothing. It's so worth it being here, helping the birds, helping the people.
People. When something happens, they are quick to think about the issue and help. But the issue is soon forgotten in the midst of their daily lives. People. The temporarily conscious, the temporarily forgetful. We are those same birds. Birds that fly together. Birds who migrate in groups. Birds who hit the sea together and no one knows if some of them get left behind. We are those same birds. We walked through fire and rain. We migrate. We are those same birds. If we reach the shore of salvation, we look for shade behind vines like starlings. We sing from every branch like sparrows. We saunter like partridges, like the peacock drunk on colors. We jump, we sit, we sing. But we do not turn into swallows. I'm afraid we may never return from the migration. I'm afraid we may lose the way to our homeland forever. I'm afraid we may permanently lose our dreams. Or perhaps our wishes are no longer wishes. Or maybe the road to our dreams no longer requires passports.
Thanks to Parnian and Autosoft for a great video. As mentioned, it was a lot of similarities between us humans and the birds, and how we migrate and then we go to a new home and make a new place, new home. So now I would like to introduce our next item. basically we have a video that it was provided to us by Irfan Nazar Ahari. She's an Iranian poet and writer of children's book and author of the audio and musical work A Heart Bigger Than the World. She has penned 16 books in Persian language, most of which has been translated to English, French, German, Italian, and Dutch. They have been published in different countries, and also they are available on internet. Irfan Nazar Ahari stated that although poets and writers of children's books tend to prepare them for the future, they fail to fulfill their needs, as most of the works are in the field of literature, humanities, history, geography, and arts. When a work is supposed to be made of children, classical literature should be used, she stressed. Iranian children hardly read books, and families usually encourage them for studying rather than reading books. Without any further ado, I'm going to present to you her video.
Peace is not an incident that happens all of a sudden when we are all asleep. Peace is a pursuit that envelops all hours of our sleep and wakefulness. Peace is a long tale written by all human beings and lived by all. Each person is one word in this story, an expression, a sentence, or perhaps even a passage or a page. Peace is not a law. Neither can it be imposed on the world, nor on individuals. Peace is a belief based on choice and free of any compulsion. It is a profoundly sincere and wholehearted choice. It is the choice of reconciliation in place of grudges, friendship in place of animosity, tolerance in place of disharmony, forbearance in place of inclemency. But this reconciliation and friendship and this harmony and tolerance starts with me. The reconciliation of each person with self, the friendship of each person with self, and the harmony and tolerance of each person with self. And when the time comes when one is reconciled with self and loves and accepts the self, then one can love and accept others. And that other is in fact the world. And only when one loves and is reconciled to self and loves others, can one then love God.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. Unfortunately, Irfan couldn't be with us today, and but she wanted to share her message through this video with you guys. The next part, we are going to have a choir performance from Seattle musical group, Seattle Iranian choir performance, and we have also a speaker afterwards that I'm going to introduce him in advance. Afshin Seperi, he's an active volunteer of the public service domain, especially when it involves the Persian and Iranian culture and community. He's passionate about Persian literature, especially the Shahnameh, the Persian books of kings. He's the producer of audiobook series, The Stories of Shahnameh, both in Persian and English. Afshin is a member of Persian and Iranian Studies Program Advisory Board at University of Washington, and he's a speaker and member of the advisory group at Persian Poetry and Music Workshop of Seattle. He has a PhD in electrical and computer engineering from University of Maryland and works as a principal software engineer in Washington State. Right now, we are going to show their performance, and after that, we have Afshin live to talk with him. Hope you enjoyed that performance. I'm trying to see if, yes, we have Afshin with us. So I'm going to welcome Afshin. Thanks for sharing the great performance with us.
Thanks so much. Thanks for giving us a chance to show this video to people outside our circle. So very briefly, I don't know. Unfortunately, I had connection issue. I do not know if you talked about it before, but very briefly.
No, actually, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that performance and also the poem.
Sure, absolutely. So this is a famous poem by Saadi Shirazi, so a famous Iranian poet from the 13th century. And as you may have read from the lyrics, it talks about how humans are part of one body, and if one part feel sadness or just aches, the other parts will feel the pain as well. So the idea of this music came about when we had a joint performance with the Seattle Peace Chorus, is an American choir in the area of Seattle, where they focus on peace and prosperity for everybody. And Seattle Iranian Choir, which is also a local Iranian choir, had a chance to have a joint concert with them in 2018. And in that concert, we performed this song together on the stage. And then obviously during the Corona time, when we were thinking about how we can just make videos and just reach more people through Zoom and YouTube and other means, we decided to work on it together. And just as you watched, we added the Persian lyrics and the English translation to it. And the translation is mainly the work of my good friend, Doug Balcon from Seattle Peace Chorus Action Ensemble. And the two of us worked on the video and on working with our choir to just put this together. And I think that the message is important. At the end of the day, we are all humans, and to be human, you need to feel for others and have sympathy and empathy towards other people.
Absolutely, Afshin, and that's the message that we want to give in this program and this day, that we are all humans and we need to help each other, we need to feel for each other, and we need to sometimes share the pain with each other. Thanks again, Afshin, for the performance and to be with us in the program, and hopefully we can have more performance from you guys in our future programs.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for the next item, I'm going to ask Parnian to do the introduction.
Thank you. Our next speaker is a distinguished researcher from Sweden. After getting his PhD in biochemistry from Stockholm University, he attained a postdoc from UC San Diego. Returning to Stockholm, he became professor emeritus in both the Department of Clinical Neuroscience as well as the Department of Molecular Medicine and Surgery. He has published hundreds of scientific papers, which have been read and cited by thousands. I am honored to have known him personally and delighted he is here today to speak of how war can affect generations genetically. Please welcome Professor Tomas Extruom.
Thank you, Parnian. Very nice to see you after a few years. Can I share my screen now?
Yes, you should be able to, Dr. Extruom, to share your screen.
Okay.
We can see the slide. If you could please put it in the presentation.
Oh, now I see it. Yes. Okay, you can see it now?
Perfect.
Good. So I'm happy to be here. This is going to be a little bit different from what we've seen and heard so far. I was asked to touch upon mechanisms that can create problems in offspring over generations by war and other trauma. And this is an interesting topic that has been, for the past few years been researched more and more. Let's see if this works. You might recognize these two gentlemen. To the left, Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck, and to the right, Charles Darwin. So the question is, are acquired traits transferred to offspring? And de Lamarck claimed yes. He claimed that a response to a changing environment can actually affect offspring and in that way cause evolution of species. Now, Darwin, 50 years later, said no, natural selection is the only way. Now, it turns out that Lamarck, who was a little bit mocked up till a few years ago, I would say, has now got a little bit coming back to his ideas. So this touch upon something called epigenetics. So what is epigenetics? To be very basic and brief, the genome contains DNA, as you may know. This is a chain of nucleotides denominated A, T, C, and G, which order describes the organization of an organism, codes for its proteins, and regulates its genes. Now, there are identical DNA copies in all cells of an individual. At cell division, all information in the DNA molecule is replicated and transferred to the daughter cells when the cells divide. But expression of the DNA is then cell type specific, so it depends on which cell type, organ, and individual. Epigenetics is the mechanism that regulates the properties of this function called genomic function. And this is not primarily dependent on the DNA sequence, so it's something on top of that. And you can see it similar to a computer where you have the hardware, which is the computer itself, and the software, which regulates how the hardware is supposed to work. Now, to be very brief, epigenetics is working through what we call an epigenetic code. Throughout the DNA molecule, there are not only the A, T, C, and G, as I mentioned, but also modifications that is more or less dynamic. For instance, small methyl groups can be attached throughout the DNA at very specific places, and also other parts of the genome called histone proteins can also be marked with specific molecules. Now, the epigenetic code, as I said, is unique for each cell type, for each individual phenotype. And phenotype, you could say, is the property of a cell, property of an organ, and an organism. So epigenetics controls the cell's properties and the cell memory, and you can view it as similar to a barcode, which is different from one individual to the other, and also different, of course, in all different organs within a body. What is interesting coming into the real topic here is that epigenetic changes can alter the offspring in utero. So this is kind of the first step towards a transgenerational effect. And one beautiful example, of course, is mouse, but similar things could be said for human. And this particular mouse has a variant of a specific gene called the agouti gene. And it turns out that when the pups are in the pregnant mother, and the mouse mother is fed a diet which is rich or poor in methyl donor molecules, the offspring can differ from being yellow and fat and prone to cancer, or just normal like the mouse here to the right. So the maternal diet during pregnancy can affect the epigenetic gene regulation and thus the phenotype of the offspring. Another extremely interesting example, this is a few years ago now, but it describes a transgenerational effect. In the northern part of Sweden, at the turn between the 1800s and the 1900s, there was a famine. And the grandsons from their grandfathers from that time were investigated for risk of dying in cardiovascular disease. And it turned out that if the grandfather, just before puberty, had a very good food supply, the risk for the grandsons to die about 6 years earlier from primarily cardiovascular disease was increased. While if the food supply during the time of the grandfather's famine before puberty was poor, then the risk of dying was smaller. Now, this was grandfather to grandson. If they looked at the grandmother to grandson, this effect was abolished. So obviously there was a germline specific effect. Another terrible example is the so-called hunger winter in Holland. A Dutch village was under siege by the Nazis in 1944-45, and women starving in the first 6 months of the pregnancy gave birth to smaller babies who grew up to be more prone to obesity, coronary disease, schizophrenia, and cancers. And it turned out that investigating these individuals, that there were persistent epigenetic differences associated to this. So the starving of the mother during pregnancy gave rise to molecular and physiological effects in their offspring. Now, it's important that we look a little bit about terminology. Transgenerational versus intergenerational inheritance. Again, this is a picture of mouse, but this is the same for human. So start looking at the paternal lineage. If an individual here is exposed to something, then of course this mouse in this case and the germ lines, germ cells will be exposed, which means that in the next generation, the mouse that were created from the germ cells of the FO here is also subject to the direct exposure that the mouse was exposed to here. So this is an intergenerational effect. However, if you go further, so that these germ lines, germ cells in this F1 mouse is propagating, then if the effect is persistent in the coming mouse here, this is transgenerational, and of course also further on to the F3 generation. Now in the maternal lineage, it's a bit more complicated if the female here is pregnant, because first the female is exposed, the fetus is exposed, and the germ cells in the fetus is also exposed. And in this case, we have to go through F to F3 generation in order to have kind of a clean transgenerational effect. Otherwise, it's an intergenerational effect. So I will just show you a little bit epidemiological findings. I know this is recorded, so interested audience can go back to YouTube and look at this in more detail later on. But I would just like to highlight a few things in the preconceptional effects. And this is interesting because these are effects if an individual is exposed to something before, in a female case before being pregnant, and then in the male case before conception. So it turns out that common mental disorders, both in men and women, can have effect and increase the likelihood of preterm birth. You can look at the other ones later on. In utero effect, I mentioned a little bit. Maternal depression can affect the fetus, so to give neurobiological effects. Going to transgenerational and intergenerational effects, famine, war, racial discrimination has shown to affect, for instance here, increased risk for obesity, schizophrenia, reduced lifespan, and general negative health effects. So this is something that needs to be researched further. So reported intergenerational effects due to war trauma or PTSD has been shown that the American Civil War, World War II Holocaust, and the Vietnam War give rise to intergenerational effects. And the first mechanism one is looking at is the so-called HPA axis, which is the regulation of the stress hormone cortisol. Now, we want to know more about biological mechanisms. For instance, it's been proposed that regulatory RNA from vesicles in somatic tissues can move to spermatozoa, which then will propagate into the next generation. And spermatozoa may be affected permanently if, especially if it's exposed before puberty. Then we must not forget that there are social as well as epigenetic mechanisms that confer effects from trauma and war. And I think I only have these minutes, so I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Tomas, for being here with us today and giving this brief lecture for us. I wanted to ask briefly, because you mentioned some of the adverse effects that these epigenetic changes can have, and the fact that this is a blooming field of research. And I wanted to ask if there's been any research done so far to talk about if there is a potential of changing the epigenetic effects. So if a parent or someone in a previous generation has had an epigenetic change due to trauma or war, and that affects the offspring, do we know if we can change it back to decrease the adverse effects? Well,
that's an interesting question. And to answer very quickly, no, these are very specific effects. However, there is research on rats where the treatment of the pups by the rat mother can affect the pups' later life stress resilience. And this is something that can be modified with what we call epigenetic drugs. So in this case, there is a way to do it. Of course, this is not really intergenerational or transgenerational effect. It's a direct effect, mother to pup. But at least it's a very interesting finding.
Thank you again for your time, and thank you for all the research and for being here with us today.
You're so welcome. Not sure how to get out of here now.
So I think, Thomas, if you just close your PowerPoint, you should just stop there.
You're right. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks again, Thomas, for a really great presentation. So now, before going to our next item, we wanted to have, as Akula mentioned, we want to have some engagement with the audience and have some conversation. Actually, one of my questions for Akula is that what the piece means to you. You know, we have heard from the scientific part of it, from the music performance, but for you, what does peace mean?
To me, peace is a state of mind, and it's a state of harmony. And I think it's like, you know, rather than looking out, it's more about finding it inside. So it has more of the spiritual meaning attached to it. What about you? I mean, what is peace?
Yeah, that's a very good point, that sometimes instead of looking for peace outside of ourselves, we need to find it inside of ourselves first before we try to look at outside. Absolutely. And from my end, one of the things that maybe would be a very simple way of basically saying that, but when you are trying to go to bed, when you are trying to sleep, the state of mind, as you mentioned, that you have not significant worries in your life regarding your safety, regarding your resources, or regarding the opportunities that they may come to you. So that's the piece that when you are basically at the end of the day is the state that you feel, you know, kind of content. I would put it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And please, as we mentioned, please engage with us through the chat. Either you can put it in the chat box in the Zoom if you are attending via the Zoom, or put in the chat box in the YouTube. And our folks that are helping us here, they are going to let us know about your comments. Thank you.
Okay, moving ahead with the program, talking about music once again. We are all aware about the countless benefits of music, like reducing anxiety, pain, decreasing fatigue, uplifting mood, improving memory, and learning. Music is an important part of our lives, and we're surrounded by it, be it the chirping of the birds, sound of the rain, be it the patriotic songs which fill us with a sense of pride, hymns of worship, songs about love, happiness, longing, sorrow, and the sweet, soft lullabies that put us to sleep. Music conveys such beautiful emotions. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. LiuJian, a Gutian player. He started his path of learning Gutian from different teachers since 2003. By the year 2017, he won the Silver Award in a national music competition. The Gutian is a plucked 7-string Chinese instrument. It is an ancient instrument that has more than 3,000 years of history. The traditional way of using the chin to better understand nature and potential of music, and thereby learn more about the self and cultivate oneself by playing the chin. The name of this piece is the Autumn Song of the Lakeside. Let's hear what Mr. LiuJian has to say.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. It's quite late. It's 1 o'clock in the middle night. But I still want to play the music for you. It's a peaceful song, and it's a happiness song of an ordinary fisherman. Hope you like it.
Wow, that was so mesmerizing. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your performance.
As Akula mentioned, it was really peaceful, LiuJian. I was feeling that, oh, now I'm at peace. I don't want to continue the program anymore. So thank you so much for the performance. We really appreciate it. For the next part, we have a guest from Iran that unfortunately, because of some technical issues, he couldn't be with us last minute. So I'm going to introduce him to you, and then we are going to show a video that he shared with us. Our next guest is Mehdi Monem. When we are talking about photography in wartime, he's one of the well-known people in Iran, even though he's always very quiet about his work, but his work is so great that you cannot miss that. He has done a lot of photography exhibition on war survivors. And he has been working in this area for the past 4 decades. He has a message for you guys that I'm going to deliver that message on behalf of him. The history of the world has more experience with war than with peace. Therefore, one cannot trust that its peace will last nor escape its war. Wars are part of the humanity's family, which in the most optimistic view can be considered an evil part of the world, but not one that can be destroyed. Wars are often closely tied to our cultural and social conditions. For this reason, since the earliest days of human existence on planet Earth, the world has experienced war as people use it as a means to fulfill their needs. From the very beginning of the human race, when wood and sticks were the deadliest weapons known to man, to the contemporary era, when our fingers are poised to set off nuclear weapons, we have lived in fear of starting a war. With this description, it can be said that the absence of war does not mean permanent peace in the world. True peace is realized when humans can reject the interests of the individual and sometimes those of their tribe that are incompatible with the spirit of peace. Peace and friendship can be promoted by respecting the purest values of humanity. To achieve the eternal desire of humanity, which is to live in peace and security, we must strive for the prosperity of our fellow man. In today's world, where the employers of war put lethal weapons in the hands of contractors, art can act as a weapon that purifies the soul to serve peace with its international language. Among the visual arts photography, due to its profound impact on human understanding and ability to capture moments in the flow of time, it's a great aid to humanity. For this reason, as a photographer who has tasted the bitterness of war, both on and behind the fronts of battle, have spent years trying to photograph the suffering of civilians who inadvertently fell victim to the bombs and missiles during the Iran-Iraq war in residential areas, to emphasize that war is the most bitter experience of humanity, while the defense of peace and living with love and friendship is the most beautiful. Hope you enjoyed this beautiful message. Now we are going to see the video that Mr. Mehdi Monem has provided to us. It was really soul touching, basically video that was part of a gallery exhibition of some of the photos by Mr. Mehdi Monem. And again, we are really appreciative of his work, that what he has shown about the after, basically a life of the war and how that impacts you. And the title was amazing, Peace and Love. So again, thanks to him. Now we are ready for the next item.
So before moving on, here is the fun fact about the symbolism of the dove. The first International Peace Conference in Paris, 1949, used Pablo Picasso's Dove of Peace as its emblem. Since then, people have known the dove as the most recognizable symbol of peace and innocence. In ancient Japan, a dove carrying a sword symbolized the end of war. Greek mythology and biblical renderings also use the symbol of the dove, usually with an orange branch, to signify renewal and tranquility. Now, talking about storytelling. Storytelling is the interactive art of using words and actions to reveal the elements and images of a story while encouraging the listener's imagination. We have a video for all of you.
Hi, my name is Behnaz, and I grew up in Iran. And as a kid, I got bullied a lot because I was mostly a nerd and different from the rest of the kids in class. Until about the age of 23, where I decided that I was going to come to the US to continue my education. And right now I'm in my 30s and I'm still in the US, and that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Yael and I'm originally from Israel. Living in Israel as a kid, it was all about war and people and death and other stuff that was really hard to digest. So I didn't really learn how to trust and be with people till I came to the States and I ended up in the Seattle area. And people are really, really nice. And I learned that being part of a group can be really an amazing experience.
Hi, my name is Marty, and I grew up in the southern United States during the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And one of the reasons we moved, I was in Alabama, we moved to Georgia so that my siblings and I could go to an integrated high school, which in the 60s was pretty unusual back then. I come from a fairly liberal background, which was also different back then. I've come to storytelling because I've always wanted to, basically. I've been to festivals and watched storytellers, and I was a teacher and used storytelling a lot in presenting ideas and concepts. And so once COVID happened, it opened up a world of storytelling through Zoom.
And so I always was fascinated by stories and was looking for the magic in life. And so I ended up taking a class at the beginning of COVID of writing and telling stories for 5 sessions. So I promised myself to keep going with it. So at the end of it, I was pulled towards searching for places to tell stories.
So I started COVID where I had been in the US for a while. I'd moved to Seattle, but I haven't really spent time making new friends in this new city I was in because I was just a workaholic, working all the time. And so I decided I was going to start joining different meetups to meet new people. And one of the meetups I joined was Fresh Ground Stories. And initially I thought when people said storytelling, they were just going to make up stories. Little did I know that you were talking personal stories, and it terrified me because as an Iranian, I hadn't learned to do vulnerability. And little by little, I started to get more comfortable sharing my personal experiences and being open with other people. And I started to meet all these lovely new people. One day, this lady came in and she was telling us a story about this class that she was in. And as part of her story, she started making noises of bears and possums, and it was just so interesting. And then this other lady came in and she had a story. It was about how she had gotten massaged by cats. I was like, I want one of those. That sounds awesome. Little did I know that this was a lie and it wasn't actually a story. I'll pay you back for that one. But that's how I met Yael and Marty.
And so after telling my story about these possum and how I told my first story by mistake, basically these lovely ladies, Behnaz and Marty and other people in the group started giving me feedback and supporting me and cheering me on. It was so magical that not just that people had the same interest, but they were really there for me and with me in my journey as a storyteller. That made it more possible to tell personal stories, which is where I come from, really terrifying sometimes. So that was a wonderful experience.
And of course, I met Yael and Behnaz at Fresh Ground Stories, telling personal stories. And then Yael asked me to help her with a not-so-personal story, and I was working on a not-so-personal story as well, so we got together and helped each other with our stories and with other things. We became sort of support group, and then Behnaz started joining us on some of these workshop kind of things, and we became fast, furious friends and supporters of each other. And despite our incredibly different backgrounds and ages, we are still able to find more things in common than otherwise and learn more about each other and other cultures as well.
So that's what I learned from these amazing ladies and getting together with them every week now, is that stories unite us. The stories about what makes us humans and how we connect to each other as humans. Doesn't matter where we come from. So I'm privileged to have two sisters, storyteller sisters, in my life.
And so this last year with COVID was really, really hard, but we all had one constant in our lives, which was every Monday at 7 p.m. we would get together and we would either share stories or sometimes we didn't. We would just talk, but we were there for each other, and that made all of the difference. And as one of our storytelling coaches says, tell your story, change the world. And in my opinion, in our little way, we have. And maybe if you are not part of a storytelling group, try it. Who knows? Maybe you'll also change the world in your own way. And that's our story.
Wow, that has really been nicely put. Sharing stories really helps us connect with one another. Before moving on to our next event, I have another question for our audience, and that is, what makes you peaceful? Feel free to use the chat box.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Akula, because one of our objectives of this program is promote peace and also learn from each other's experiences. So sharing experiences, that what methods or what different activities that you do to help your inner peace or even the peace with outside world, that would be very useful information for everyone.
While you're writing your answers, I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Axinia Samoilova, who has studied linguistics and cross-cultural communication in Russia. She moved to Austria, where she has been working as a recruitment consultant for 15 years. Thanks to her studies, immigration, and work experience, she has got a deep insight into the issues people face when they change countries. Peace is one of the conditions being challenged by moving homes. Ms. Axinia will share her ideas and practical tips on attaining peace collectively and individually. She will be talking about peace and immigration, challenges and solutions. The stage is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be a part of this awesome project, and I will make it short. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I grew up in 3 different countries, in Lithuania, Germany, and Russia. And then I started, so already I had this intercultural background. Then I studied in Russia, and afterwards I moved to Europe, where I also lived in 3 different countries. And then I also traveled a lot. So I've seen a lot of different cultures, mindsets, and I was well equipped with the knowledge how to understand. So I had a solid theoretical base for understanding cultural differences, which was really awesome. And I was so delighted about it. I was presenting at conferences, writing papers and all that stuff, until one moment when I started feeling that I was not anymore comfortable about seeing differences. So somehow I started, I was getting this feeling that I don't want anymore to see the differences. I want to see the oneness. I want to feel the oneness, and I actually felt it. This is how I came to this unique concept, which which is not actually highlighted somehow in the popular awareness, but it is a very interesting phenomenon which has been studied by by psychologists already. There are papers on that, studies on that. It's called oneness. And the amazing point of that is that this feeling of oneness, of being one with the whole, one with the humanity, with nature, with whatever. So this feeling is amazingly irrelevant to our religious, social, any cultural background. So people across cultures, ages, and even atheists, actually totally non-spiritual people, in different times came to that. A lot of great thinkers, artists, scientists, many of them speak about this. They in different words, but they all mention this vast, amazing feeling of being one with the world. So, and I came to that on my own. I came to that, what I guess, during my meditation practice. But why actually it is relevant here? Because I can tell you it has a very simple and powerful impact if you have it. So since I felt this oneness, since I came to this phenomena that I really imbibed it, never ever in my life I experienced any discrimination, any actual intercultural or interpersonal even problems, because I believe that it works in a way that you transmit this. You feel being one with the whole, you feel being one with everyone, yeah? You do not feel that you have a border somewhere, you know, in between, and people feel it, and you know, they trust you, they want to be with you. So it has an absolute direct, clear impact on my personal life, that since I stopped seeing differences and started seeing this oneness, but it was not enforced. Now, this is important, not that I learned it mentally to do this. It just happened, you know, I just came to that through my personal development, and I guess, I believe through my meditation practice. That's why this is what I highly recommend. I mean, I don't know the ways how other people came to that, how all these great souls and scientists, they, through their own other experiences and even non-spiritual experience, maybe just cognitively through realizing the interconnectedness between things. But to me, it was thanks to my meditation practice, which is Sahaja meditation, which is also represented on the homepage of this UNESCO Body, Mind, Wellbeing. And you can go and check there the details how to do this. But what I can share with you, this easy tip how to actually start, at least, because I don't know other ways. This is the shortest way which I went to reach this oneness, is through this experience. So we can try this shortly now. If you just desire that you have it, that you experience, you just have to desire that you reach that. And you put your hand on top of your head. Maybe you can close your eyes. Just desire this. And then slowly you raise your hand, slowly, slowly. I mean, this is the way you can do it later. Now you will probably not get into this because we have very limited time. Then maybe you can feel some cool breeze on top of your head. If you do it, it's great, it's wonderful. Then you learn how to stay here, because the oneness actually takes place here. It's here, it's not anywhere. The connection is here. And my experience is that then later you can practice it more often. You will see that you will get into it slowly, slowly. It may not happen tomorrow, but this is the way to, at least one of the ways to come to this. And my vision is that this is kind of out of the box thing, because this is not the piece which you will solve through actions. This is not the piece also which you solve through your own individual thing. It's the one, this unites all of us, and this happens naturally. This is the message, that this is something which will happen naturally, that many more people will at some point reach that. And then we don't have any need even for some technical solutions, for some peacemaking, for whatever. It will happen, you know. This is what I believe, that at some point we will reach there, and maybe just by small things, but at least to be aware that this one of the ways, which is, to me, it's a shortcut. I believe that if we emerge into oneness, then we can, a lot of problems will just dissolve.
That is very well said. And by being one, you can like get rid of all these differences, because we're all human beings, first of all, and then we are different people. And all these barriers of like culture, religion, these are all social constructs. So that's why this oneness that you're talking about, I can resonate. And it's something very innate. It's not something that you have to like run towards to get. It's just with you, like I said. So thank you so much, Ms. Axinia, for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Axinia, for sharing the experiences. We are always appreciative of you teaching us something in every program that we have with UNESCO BMW. So for the next item, we have a peaceful performance from Master Shokri. I think he was trying to join. I'm not sure if he has or not, but I'm going just to do a very quick introduction of Master Shokri. Saifullah Shokri, music researcher, reviver of ancient instruments, musician, and poet. He was born in Qazvin, Iran. As a teenager, he became acquainted with the reed instrument, and this was the beginning of his artistic activity. A decade later, he continued his research in the history of music and instruments in Iran and the Middle East in 3 areas: library, laboratory, and workshop. By inventing the carpet maker as a platform for the voice of carpet weavers, he thought to change the working and living conditions of carpet weavers. In the field of revival of ancient instruments, Master Shokri registered the Iranian harp in the list of Iran's spiritual heritage and also donated it to the UN Secretary General. With the approach of promoting common human cultures and expressing the idea of collecting and publishing mothers' lullabies, he created the Secretary of the Song of Peace in cooperation with ICOM in Iran. With the beginning and expansion of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Voice of History project that he has started with the aim of preventing the identity of intangible and spiritual heritage of the great musicians of the Iranian tribes in the future. This project is currently underway. So with that one, I'm going to share his video with you guys. Hope you enjoy.
The current song, In the Heights of the World's Mountains, is the chorus of Mother Earth and the dialogue of calm and existence equal in human life. The wind is the same in the mountains of Panjshir, Elburz, Himalayas, Zagros, Andes, and Alps, like the kindness of a mother. The wind's current reminds us, children of earth, like an ancient sage, that wisdom and they alike paved the way for the peace and tranquility of humanity without fellow man and all of our environment beyond any geography. The ear of life must listen to the lullaby of Mother Nature, who wants mankind as a free wind and beyond any line drawn by politics and geography. Beyond race, religion, color, and gender, for Earth's children, from generation to generation, to teach our young that the breath of the wind's music is as long as history and as wide as the life and thoughts of humanity.
Hope you enjoyed the video. And again, thanks for Ustad Shokri for providing the video. I think he was not able to join us. He has some technical issues with the Zoom. One thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm sure everyone that they have been following the news recently, they have heard about the Afghanistan situation and what has happened there after many years of war. And we had a special guest from Afghanistan that he's actually right now in Kabul. And we really wanted him to be in this program, and he graciously accepted to be in this program. But as we know, the situation may not be suitable, so he couldn't join us last minute. But we would like to talk a little bit about him, and also I'm going to read one of the poem from him. So his name is Sayyid Raza Mohammadi. Sayyid Raza Mohammadi, he's one of the very well-known poet and literature faces in Afghanistan. And he's very famous for his work that is going beyond Afghanistan. And even the German National Public Radio, they had a program on him that they were talking about how his work has impacted the literature and poetry in Afghanistan. I'm going to read one of his poem in the original language, that is in Farsi, and to dedicate to his work and to honor his work. And we were very sad that he couldn't join us. So I'm going to basically read the poem for you. آدمی پرنده است، به هر طرف که خواست میپرد، مثل سار پشت سایه های سرو سایه میکند، مثل طوطی از جهان یکی قفس کرایه میکند، مثل زاغ خوب زاغه، مثل قو به دلبری، مثل باز با خدایوارگی بزرگ میشود، مثل کرکس از جهان به بوی خون به درندگی دچار، کم کم از پرنده گرگ می شود. آدمی درنده است، مثل شیر دشت 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 می رود. سرشکسته کم به خانه می رود، مثل رو به آنچه نیم خورده های شیر را نشانه می رود. مثل سگ به راه، مثل سگ اجیر این و آن، پادشاه گله های دیگران، در به در برای نیم لقمه استخوان، برای نیم متر سرپناه، مثل سوسمار رنگ رنگ با طبیعت محیط در پی شکار دیگران. آدمی خزنده است، مثل اژدها به روی گنج خفته، از گرسنگی هلاک می شود ولی تکان نمی خورد. مثل کرم غیر حرص چیزی از جهان نمی خورد. آدمی درنده است، آدمی پرنده است، آدمی خزنده است. آدمی خلاصه هرچه است تا که زنده است. We dedicate this poem from him to all the people in Afghanistan and all the people around the world. So now we can move to our next item that Akula is going to talk about.
Before moving to that, there is a fun fact that gender equality makes states and societies more peaceful. Studies have shown that gender equal societies are less likely to have aggressive wars, less likely to experience civil wars, and more likely to support international institutions. Gender equal societies tend to have better relations with their neighbors. So you can all write in the comment section below why you agree or disagree with this, and why do you think gender equal societies are more peaceful. Moving on, migration plays an important role in shaping peace and conflict dynamics. Therefore, an understanding about migration and peace is important for peace building. We have another video here in relation to peace and children.
What's your name? Hey, can you speak English? If you don't speak, I can't help you. No, he doesn't understand. Take him away.
My name is Muhammad.
Where are you from?
Everywhere.
No. Which country?
Father of my father was Polish. Mother of my father was Russian. Father of my mother was German. Mother of my mother was Turkish. My father was born in the US and my mother in Iran.
Where were you born?
Middle of war. Time is Karini. Time nie odbije się. Given zmiazu. Ona sınır. Tano هم بده. Can you let me in?
So we would like to thank Mr. Abuzar Haydari for this work. It was really an impressive short video. So Akula brought up a really good point. Again, it's tough to say that we agree or disagree, but it always depends from which perspective you look at it. But definitely when you have equality, not only for gender, for everything else in a society, that provides a platform for everyone to bloom. Gender equality, race equality, and ethnicity equality, language equality, and all of that provides an opportunity for people to get to their full potential. So overall, I agree with you. Any of those basically aspect, when it happens, it gives people the opportunity to be themselves and to provide to the society and to the community at their capacity. So I don't know if what you would like to share about that.
Yeah, like I agree with you. It's just about being accepting about, you know, people's differences and just their identity, and just being accepting and just, you know, letting a person be who they are. And because of this, I have another question for our audience, and that is, what can you do to protect peace? What can you do as an individual to protect peace?
Very good question, very important question, especially now every day we look at the news. Unfortunately, there are news about war, and so what we can as human being, as each individual can do to protect peace. Very, very good question. So we are going to look at our YouTube chat to see what are the responses that we get, and if we have time at the end of the program, we are going to share with everyone.
Okay. Moving on, sport is not limited to the practice of physical activities. It is in fact a recreational space where a healthy lifestyle is promoted. Through physical and mental development, sports is used to promote peace, tolerance, discipline, teamwork, fairness, and bringing people together across boundaries, culture, and religion. Sports doesn't just empower on an individual basis, it also unifies and inspires people collectively. Let's look at a video about peace and sports.
So I hope you enjoyed this short video about the sport and peace. Dr. Tomas Extruom, he had a comment regarding the question that Akula brought up about the gender equality. So I'm going to read his response. He says that regarding gender equality, it is difficult to assess the causality. Open and peaceful societies will foster gender and other equality. Very true. Very good point, Dr. Extruom. So we are getting toward basically toward the end of our program. But before that, I would like to express our appreciation, UNESCO, BMW, and also Iranian American Community Center, to a lot of individuals that they helped this program. This planning for this program has started about 2 months, or actually 3 months ago. And a lot of people behind the scene, and also some of that you guys have seen them today, helped with this program. So I would like to thank all of these individuals: Armin Isarian, Maryam Badi'i, Nazanin Manuchehrian, Behnaz Arzani, Mohsen Karimi, Parnian Karimi, and also Mehdi Ahmadi. He is our IT man. Everything that you see today is happening because of him. He's in the background running the YouTube and Zoom for us. So thanks, Mehdi, for all of your work. And the last but not the least, the mastermind of this program. She has poured her soul and her energy for the past 2 months for this program. So I would like to thank personally Atusa Estekizadeh because of all of her time for this program, and she is going to provide the final closing remarks for this program. So I welcome Atusa to provide her last message. And yes, I'm waiting for Atusa to, okay, I see that she's coming on. Perfect.
Thank you, Ami, for your nice word. For the end of this program, ladies and gentlemen, we are glad to have gathered today for the sake of peace. We are grateful to you all for accepting our invitation and attending this event, and we'd like to thank you, and we would like to thank our speakers for their participation. Please allow us to state our dreams now that we've reached the end of the program. We dream of planting peace in the eyes of the men and women of Afghanistan. We dream of planting peace in the Karini River between Iran and Iraq. We dream of planting peace in the hearts of tanks, wherever there is a tank in the Middle East. We dream of tying a knot in a barrel of every gun, never to be fired again. We dream to planting peace to bloom in Africa, peace in Colombia. We dream of planting peace in the schools of Nigeria. We dream of replacing drugs in packages with peace, planting peace wherever there is a child, planting peace in our mother's land, or even better, let us give peace to the hand of the wind to spread all over the world without limitation to color, race, ethnicity, nationality, and language. Peace without borders. We dream of peace of all kinds and for all people. No mother's son sent off to war. No river the color of blood. No child stepping on a mine. No drug cartels. No forced displacement. No orphan. No schools left empty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for participating in the celebration of Peace Day. Before the end of this program, we wish to say, for the sake of our dreams, for the sake of a world without war, please protect peace.
Protege la paz, por favor.
कृपया अमन को सुरक्षित रखें.
请保卫和平.
Suojele rauhaa.
Anna shimru ala shalom.
لطفاً از صلح حمایت کنید.
Pidetään rauhasta huolta joukossa.
Freden.
Suojellaan rauhaa.
Beschützt den Frieden.
Suojelkaa rauhaa, kiitos.
Hyvä.
Por favor, protejam a paz.
Protejайте pacea.
Snälla, bevara fred.
So thanks everyone. With peace and love, have a wonderful day. Thank you.